Good morning and welcome to Live Without Limits. Reach personal success on a daily basis. Today's show is titled Mirror Mirror, Navigating Self-Esteem in a World of Comparisons. I'm Davida Shinsky, your host and guide to this journey towards better self-awareness and self-esteem. As a career and personal development strategy coach, I have dedicated my career to helping people understand and improve their self-worth. Through this podcast, we will explore various aspects of self-esteem and offer practical advice to help you lead a more fulfilling and confident life. This podcast is all about understanding the factors that influence our self-esteem and finding ways to nurture a healthier self-image, how we see ourselves in the mirror. Each episode dives into different topics, from daily habits to deeper psychological insights aimed at empowering you to become the best version of yourself. Today's episode focuses on persuasive issues that many of us struggle with, comparing ourselves to others, whether it's on social media, at work, or even within our own families. Comparisons are almost inevitable. But why do we compare ourselves to others, and how does this impact our self-esteem? This is something that parents often do between children simply because it's a way to demean one child against another and create jealousy. Comparing ourselves to others can lead feelings of inadequacy and envy. When we see others' success and accomplishments, we might feel that we are not doing enough or that we are not good enough. This can erode our self-esteem and lead to a negative self-image. However, it's important to understand that everyone's journey is different, and comparisons often overlook the personal struggles and challenges that others face. So, in this episode, we'll cover understanding comparisons, the psychology behind why we compare ourselves to others, the different types of comparisons, and common scenarios where they occur, the impact on self-esteem, how comparisons can negatively affect our self-esteem, leading to feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, and reduced self-worth. So how, in some cases, comparing can serve as a motivation for self-improvement. Personal stories and experiences, sharing personal anecdotes and listener stories about how comparisons have affected their lives and self-esteem. Strategies to combat negative comparisons, practical tips, that techniques for reducing the habit of comparing yourself to others, the importance of practicing gratitude, setting personal goals, and focusing on self-improvement, positive use of comparisons, how to use comparisons constructively to learn from others, set realistic benchmarks, and celebrate others' successes without feeling diminished. And by the end, what you'll have is a better understanding of how to manage the habit of comparing yourself to others and how to foster a healthier sense of self-esteem. So let's dive into and get started navigating this journey together. The psychology behind why people compare themselves. Humans are inherently social creatures. our desire to fit in and be accepted within a group has deep evolutionary roots. One psychological concept that explains why we compare ourselves to others is the social comparison theory introduced by psychologist Leon Festinger in 1954. According to this theory, people have an innate drive to evaluate themselves, often in comparison to others, to understand their own abilities and opinions. Comparing ourselves to others helps us to gauge our social standing, achievements, and even our self-worth. This behavior can provide a sense of validation and can help us to navigate social environments. However, it can also lead to negative emotions such as envy, inadequacy, and decreased self-esteem when we perceive others to be better off than ourselves. Now, if you remember back in the early part of the 20th century, when you had the, the crash where everyone lost everything and people were on the streets and hungry, and what Roosevelt did with the CCC to get people back to work. And well, and I can go back and talk about some stories that happened within my family, because I had a grandmother that, well, both my grandparents on both sides came from Eastern Europe. On my mother's side, they came from Odessa, Russia, which is now part of the Ukraine. But they also went through the pogroms where they struggled and they had nothing. And my grandmother was more jealous of other people. And even though my grandfather came from a family that were business people, she was very jealous of his family. And so they really wanted nothing to do with her. And she would go between each of the children and behind their back, each other's back, talk against each child to the others. So she created jealousy there. In my father's family, they also came from Eastern Europe, but they came from Latvia and they came from Poland. My grandfather what he did was he sold fruit from the pushcart on street corners. So they were fairly well off. But what also happened was there was a lot of physical abuse. And back then, it was known as just discipline. But there is a fine line what's discipline and what's abuse. And they often went over the line. And so these two people got together, and in essence, they created a toxic family where they both brought their upbringing to that family, and then they created a family where they were using what they did. So there was a lot of emotional, verbal, and physical abuse that actually went on within the family. And then what happened was one child felt that they were getting more attention, or the other two were getting more attention than they were, and they became very resentful. And yes, me and my older sister both have disabilities. But my mother looked at my younger sister as being the golden child, and anytime she acted out and did things wrong, she got away with it. And I ended up being the one that got the blame for almost everything. And it's not that the money mattered to me as much as I just wanted to be comfortable. And my mother, when I tried to tell her what I wanted to do with my business, all she heard was I wanted her money. Never asked for a dime, never even mentioned money, but that's what she heard because that's what she would be asking for. So all of those things can help create a lot of that lack and low self-esteem, especially if one parent or both parents each have low self-esteem within themselves. They're creating that within their children too. So social comparisons can generally be categorized in two types: the upward comparison and the downward comparison. So here's what the upward comparison is. These occur when we compare ourselves to those we perceive as better off or more successful, while upward comparisons can serve as motivation to improve ourselves. They can also lead to feelings of inadequacy and low self esteem if we constantly feel that we fall short. The downward comparisons, these occur when we compare ourselves to those we perceive as worse off or less successful. Downward comparisons can boost our self esteem and make us feel better about our situation. However, they can also lead to complacency and a false sense of superiority, which might hinder personal growth. Let me show you something. I'll give you an example of that. In my family, my mother and my sister would often get together and they would talk about what everyone else had, how much money they had in the bank, the kinds of clothes they wore, the kind of cars they drive, the kind of home they had, and they would feel jealous over what they had. Therefore, because in my situation, I have a physical disability and grew up in an era when there were no laws that guaranteed people with disabilities the right to an education or the right to employment. And when and I knew I had the skills to run my own business, and my mother used the power that she had to kind of constantly belittle me so that I would feel inadequate. Well, I had a background in psychology, so I understood what she was doing to me. And she would wield that power of having the financial means. Because what happened was my father set us up with to make sure that we would be financially taken care of. And then instead of making sure that three separate trusts were set up that my mother would manage and would go to each of us, he just basically left it to her. So that what she did was, because she couldn't control me, she, instead of leaving the separate trust, she put it all in one and left my younger sister in control. And my younger sister has such low self-esteem. And the fact is that she went into teaching not because that was her goal or her interest, but she went into it because women in that era didn't have the opportunities they have for various professions as they do today. And she did not get along and resented her own sisters to the point that she became a special ed teacher because there she was guaranteed a job because they needed special ed teachers. So what did she do? She never stayed in the same school more than a year. She never got along with the principal. She never got along with any of the other teachers. And she changed schools almost every year. After 19 years, she had to take 3 years off before she went back to teaching to get in her other 11 years so she could get a pension for having taught for 30 years. Now, here's the thing. Same thing happened as happened before. And then the last year she taught, she had to literally change school systems to get that last year in to get her 30 years. So that's what can happen to someone when you're dealing with upward and downward comparisons, because when they get control over things, this makes them feel powerful. And there's a lot of things that go on. And when you're dealing with kids with special education, you have to understand that they all learn differently. Well, this isn't any classroom, but especially with people with disabilities. So understanding the type of comparison that we are engaging in and the context behind it can help us to manage its impact on our self-esteem and personal development. Examples of common scenarios where people compare themselves: social media. Social media platforms are breeding ground for comparisons. We see curated and often idealized snapshots of others' lives, such as vacations, achievements, and personal milestones. This constant exposure can make us feel like we are not measuring up to our peers. Workplace and professional settings, we often compare our performance, job titles, salaries, and career progress towards those of our colleagues. Such as comparisons can be motivating, but they can also lead to feelings of inadequacy and stress, especially in competitive environments. Personal relationships within families and friend groups, we might compare ourselves to siblings, relatives, or friends. This can include comparisons to lifestyle and choices, parenting styles, relationship statuses, or personal achievements. These comparisons can strain relationships and impact our self esteem if we feel we are not keeping up. By recognizing these scenarios and understanding the psychological behind our comparisons, we can start to develop healthier ways to evaluate ourselves and our achievements, focusing on personal growth rather than external validation. So, what are some of the impacts that's for self-esteem? How comparisons can negatively affect self-esteem. While comparing ourselves to others is a natural human behavior, it often comes with negative consequences for our self-esteem. So here are some feelings in which comparisons can harm our self-worth. Now, feelings of inadequacy. When we constantly measure ourselves against others, especially those that we perceive as more successful or happier, we can begin to feel inadequate. These feelings stem from the belief that we are not as good as others, leading to a sense of failure and lack of accomplishment. This can create a vicious cycle where the more we compare, the more inadequate we feel. Increased anxiety and stress. Comparisons can lead to heightened anxiety and stress. The pressure to match up to others' achievements or lifestyles can be overwhelming. For instance, seeing peers and advancing in their careers while you feel stuck can create significant stress. The constant worry about not being good enough can lead to chronic anxiety, affecting mental health and overall well being. Reduced self esteem. Over time, frequent comparisons can erode our self worth. When we repeatedly judge ourselves against others and find ourselves lacking, we can start to internalize these judgments, leading to a diminished sense of self, we may begin to believe that we are inherently less valuable or capable, which can impact our confidence and willingness to pursue new opportunities. Understanding these negative impacts is crucial because it helps us to recognize when our comparisons are detrimental to our mental health and self esteem. However, not all comparisons are bad. In some contexts, they can actually be motivating. How comparisons can sometimes be motivating. While the negative effects of comparisons are significant, there are situations where comparisons can serve a positive role, particularly in a healthy, competitive environment. So, here are some ways comparisons can be motivating. Inspiration to improve. Seeing others achieve their goals can inspire us to strive for more. If you see a colleague successfully completing a challenging project, it can motivate you to take on similar challenges and push your boundaries. This type of comparison can ignite a desire for self improvement and growth. Setting realistic benchmarks. Comparisons can help us set realistic benchmarks for our own goals. By observing the paths that others have taken, we can better understand what is achievable and the steps required to get there. For instance, if you're starting a new business, looking at a progress for established businesses can provide valuable insights into what milestones to aim for. Healthy competition. In competitive environments, comparisons can drive healthy competition that fosters innovation and excellence. For example, athletes often compare their performances with those of their competitors to identify areas for improvement. This type of comparison encourages continual development and the pursuit of excellence. Learning from others. Comparisons allow us to learn from other successes and mistakes by analyzing what others have done right, what we adopt similar strategies to achieve our own goals. Conversely, understanding others' mistakes can help us to avoid the same pitfalls, making our own journey smoother. Celebrating others' successes. Learning to celebrate others' successes without feeling diminished can also be empowering. This shift in perspective allows us to view others' achievements as a testament to what is possible rather than a threat to our own self worth. While comparisons can negatively affect our self esteem by making us feel inadequate, increasing anxiety and stress, and reducing self worth. They can also serve as a source of motivation and inspiration when approached with the right mindset. The key to be mindful of how and why we compare ourselves to others and to focus on personal growth and learning rather than just measuring up. So, here are some personal stories and experiences. One of the most impactful ways to understand the effects of comparisons or self esteem is through real life stories. So, here we'll share personal anecdotes of listener stories. And they highlight the struggles, insights, and growth experienced by individuals who have navigated the pitfalls of self comparison. Personal anecdote: Sarah, a marketing executive, often found herself comparing her career directory to her peers on LinkedIn every time a connection announced a promotion or a new job. Sarah felt a pang of inadequacy. She began to doubt her own accomplishments and felt stuck in her current role. This constant comparison led to stress and decrease in her job satisfaction, impact on self esteem. Sarah's self esteem plummeted as she increasingly felt that her career was not progressing as quickly or successfully as those of her peers. After recognizing the detrimental effect that these comparisons had on her well being, Sarah decided to focus on her own career goals and achievements. She started tracking her personal milestones and accomplishments, which helped her to regain confidence and satisfaction in her career. Social media and personal life comparisons. James shared his experience by feeling inadequate due to the constant comparison of his personal life to those of his friends on social media. Seeing friends posting about their exotic vacations, new homes, and seemingly perfect relationships made James, like his life, was lacking in excitement and success. James' self worth took a hit as he felt his life didn't measure up to the curated lives of others. This led to feelings of loneliness and dissatisfaction. James decided to take a break from social media and focus on his real life connections and experience. He found that by limiting his exposure to social media, he was able to appreciate his own life more and build stronger, more meaningful relationships. So, how comparisons have affected individual self esteem. Through these stories, it's evident how comparisons can significantly impact self esteem. In Sarah's case, career comparisons led to self doubt and stress, while James's social media comparisons caused feelings of inadequacy and loneliness. These negative emotions are common results of constant self comparison and can deeply affect one's mental health and overall well being. So, what are some lessons learned from these experiences? That by focusing on personal goals, both Sarah and James learned the importance of focusing on their own goals and achievements by shifting their attention away from others and toward their personal progress. They were able to rebuild their self esteem and find satisfaction in their own lives. Limiting exposure to triggers. James' decision to take a break from social media highlights the benefit of limiting exposure to comparison triggers by reducing the time spent on platforms that fuel comparison. Individuals can protect their self esteem and focus on what truly matters to them. Practicing gratitude. Another valuable lesson is the practice of gratitude by appreciating what you have rather than what you lack. Individuals can foster a positive mindset and strengthen your self-worth. Sarah's tracking of her milestones is an excellent example of this approach. Embracing individual journeys. It's essential to understand and embrace the fact that everyone's journey is unique. Comparing ourselves to others often overlooks the different paths and challenges that each person faces. Recognizing this can help mitigate the negative impact of comparisons. Building strong networks, surrounding ourselves with supportive and understanding people can also make a significant difference. Sharing experiences and receiving encouragement from trusted friends and family members can reinforce self-esteem and provide a more balanced perspective. By learning from your personal stories, the lessons that they impact, we can develop healthier habits and mindsets that are. Let me back up and say this again. We can develop healthier habits and mindsets that promote self-esteem and personal growth. Remember, the goal is not to eliminate comparisons entirely, but to manage them in a way that supports our well-being and helps us thrive. So here are some practical tips to reduce your habit of comparing yourself to others. Now, before I get into this, I want to say this. It becomes a habit because it's something that your parents have constantly done to you or a teacher has constantly done because they don't realize that by saying negative things to us and constantly saying to us, it becomes internalized in our head to the point that we keep repeating them over and over again. And until we reprogram our thought processes, then what happens is we are reinforcing everything that is told to us. So, practicing gratitude, daily gratitude journal. Start a daily gratitude journal where you write down 3 things that you are thankful for each day. This practice shifts your focus from what you lack to what you have, fostering a positive mindset. Gratitude meditation. Incorporate gratitude into your meditation practice. Spend a few minutes each day reflecting on the positive aspects of your life and expressing thanks for them. Express gratitude. Regularly express gratitude to others. This can be through simple thank you notes, an email, or a verbal acknowledgement. Recognizing the good in others can help you appreciate the good in your own life. Setting personal goals. Define your goals. Identify and write down your personal and professional goals. Ensure that they are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, or which are your SMART goals. Break down goals. Break your goals down into smaller, manageable tasks. This makes them less overwhelming and easier to achieve, plus providing a sense of accomplishment along the way. Track your progress. Regularly track your progress towards your goals. Celebrate the small victories to help you keep motivated and focused on your own path. Now, what I also want to say is my older sister is deaf, and because they were constantly telling her she wasn't, or rather, she couldn't live on her own, she couldn't think for herself, she couldn't hold a job, all the things that she couldn't do, so that when she was in school and people would say, I'm taking this, I'm taking this. Instead of staying focused on her one line for a goal, she would branch off into taking all these other courses so that she got lost along the way. So this is what we're saying is, in a way, think of it as a horse race. Remember, in a horse race, they put blinders on a horse so that they can only see what's straight ahead of them as they're running rather than what's beside them. Well, you have to do the same thing to focus in on self-improvement. So identify your strengths and your weaknesses. Take time to identify your strengths in areas for improvement. Use this self-awareness to set personal development goals, continuous learning, commit to a lifelong learning, take courses, read books, attend workshops, and seek opportunities for growth in areas that interest you. Practice mindfulness. Engage in mindfulness practices to stay present and focused on your personal journey rather than being distracted by others' achievements. Limiting time on social media. Set time limits. Use apps or phone settings to set daily time limits for social media use. This helps you avoid endless scrolling and the comparisons that often come with it. Curate your feed. Unfollow or mute accounts that make you feel inadequate or trigger negative comparisons. Follow accounts that inspire and uplift you. How to use comparisons constructively. Identify role models. Look for individuals who have achieved what you aspire to. Study their journeys, the challenges they faced, and the strategies they used to overcome them. This can provide valuable insights and inspiration for your own path. Adopt best practices. Learn and adopt best practices from those you admire. For instance, if a colleague is exceptionally organized, observe their methods and incorporate some of their techniques into your own workflow. Seek mentorship if possible. Connect with those that you look up to and seek their mentorship, direct guidance, and advice from experienced individuals that can help you navigate your own challenges more effectively. Setting realistic benchmarks, understanding context. When comparing yourself to others, consider the context in which their achievements. Recognize that everyone has different set starting points, resources, and circumstances. Personalized benchmarks. Set benchmarks that are tailored to your own goals and capabilities. If you're starting fitness journey, set milestones based on your current fitness level rather than trying to match someone who has been training for years. Incremental goals. Break down your long-term goals into smaller, achievable milestones. This makes progress tangible and helps you stay motivated by celebrating small wins along the way. Now, celebrating others' successes without feeling diminished. Shift your perspective. View others' success as proof that your goals are achievable instead of feeling envious. See their achievements as a source of motivation and inspiration. Practice gratitude. Regularly practice gratitude for your own accomplishments and qualities. Acknowledging what you have achieved helps you appreciate your journey and reduces feelings of inadequacy, support, and encouragement. Actively support and celebrate the successes of others, congratulate them genuinely, and learn to take joy in their achievements. This positive reinforcement can strengthen relationships and create a supportive network. Reflect on your progress. Regularly take time to reflect on your own progress and achievements. Recognizing your own growth and efforts that can help you maintain a balanced perspective and avoid feeling diminished of other successes. Implementing constructive comparisons, case study approach. Treat comparisons like case studies. Analyze the steps that others took to succeed, what worked for them, and how you can adapt similar strategies to your situation. Healthy competition. Engage in healthy competition where you appreciate competing in a friendly manner can push you to improve while maintaining a positive and respectful attitude towards your peers. Celebrate and share. Celebrate with others rather than seeing them as a competitor, sharing knowledge and experience that can lead to mutual growth and success. By using comparisons constructively, you can transform a potentially negative habit into a powerful tool for personal growth and motivation. Remember, the goal is not to measure your worth against others, but to learn to set realistic goals and celebrate both your own and others' successes. This approach fosters a healthier mindset and continuous self improvement. So let's recap the key points that we've discussed in today's episode. The psychology behind comparisons. We explored why people compare themselves to others, driven by innate desire to understand our own abilities and social standing. Types of comparisons. We differentiate between upward comparisons, which can motivate but also lead to feelings of inadequacy, and downward comparisons, which can boost self esteem but might foster a complacency. Impact of self esteem. Comparisons can be negatively impact self esteem by creating feelings of inadequacy, increasing anxiety and stress, and reducing self worth. Constructive comparisons. On the positive side, comparisons can be motivating when used constructively, such as learning from others, setting realistic benchmarks, and celebrating others' successes without feeling diminished. Personal stories and lessons learned. We shared personal anecdotes that highlighted the negative impacts of comparisons and the valuable lessons learned from these experiences. Practical tips. We provided practical tips for reducing the habit of comparing yourself to others, including practicing gratitude, setting personal goals, focusing on self improvement, and limiting time on social media. Self comparison and self care. Emphasize the importance of self comparison and self care in maintaining a healthy self esteem and overall well being. Remember, comparisons are a natural part of being human, but it's crucial to be mindful of how they affect you. Instead of letting comparisons erode your self-esteem, use them as a tool for growth and inspiration. Focus on your personal journey, celebrate your progress, and practice self comparison. Your worth is not determined by how you measure up to others, but by your unique qualities and achievements. Now, thank you for joining us on this episode of Mirror, Mirror, Navigating Self-Esteem in the World of Comparisons. I hope you found today's discussion insightful and empowering. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends and family. If you have any questions, comments, or stories you'd like to share, feel free to reach out to us. Your feedback and engagement is always appreciated. So until next time, remember to be kind to yourself, focus on your growth, and celebrate your unique journey. So I would like to take this time to thank you for listening and take care. But also, the last thing that I want to tell you is this, that as a young child, when I was constantly being compared to everyone else, I was someone who would always question as to why me, and I came to the conclusion that I had a purpose in life, and I had to find that purpose. And then as I went into college, I studied psychology and I studied mental health, and I understood exactly what was happening. And then what I did was I worked on myself, partly through my training and various ways, because I wanted to be more. And when I changed the thing that created problems in my family was simply because a family works because they expect each person to react a certain way. But when one person changes and there's a breakdown in the family communication, then they're going to try and pull you back into that, what you were before. And sometimes you're going to have to disassociate with your family simply because they're going to do what's good for them. They don't really care what's good for you. So you have to learn to take care of yourself first and deal with what's going on with you so you can have a better relationship and healthier relationships in the future.